Hello everybody, welcome to Example of Play, the home for strategy, tactics, and more. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. This video is going to be a review of Tactical Breach Wizards, a tactical puzzle solving game that I recently picked up in the Steam sale and loved it so much I just had to do a quick review on it and give it a solid recommendation if you like this kind of game at all. So let's check it out. What makes this game so good? Alright, so what is Tactical Breach Wizards? Well, in a nutshell, the name actually describes the game really well. Tactical, so this is a turn-based tactical game. You're moving your guys around on a grid. They have special abilities they can use. They can shoot at enemies, but really a lot of times you're using all their other utility abilities to kind of create an advantageous situation because you're usually outnumbered, and just getting into a shootout with the enemy is not going to work, so you have to be tactical. The breach part is that the style of this game is each level is kind of a room or a couple rooms with sort of a set scenario. These are all handcrafted challenges, basically, where you're solving a puzzle, but usually there's more than one solution. And it reminds me of Into the Breach and XCOM Chimera Squad. If you played those, that's kind of the most similar thing. Most of the levels are pretty small. Some are, they get bigger and more complex as you go, but a lot of them you can still play through quickly. It's not randomly generated like Into the Breach, but it's got that same vibe because a lot of times you are moving enemies around, you're manipulating the environment, trying to set up combos with your special powers, because just straight up fighting the enemy is not going to work. And then Wizards, that ties into the really cool setting of this game where it's in kind of a futuristic, almost cyberpunk-ish setting, but your guys are all wizards. They have magic spells. One of them is a necromantic as opposed to a necromancer. One of them has a broom that they can fly around on. One guy has an assault wand, which is like an assault rifle with a wand sticking out of the front of it. So it's definitely kind of a lighthearted setting, but with a really deep story. As you play through, the characters are really fleshed out. There's a lot going on where you can delve into their backstories. They have conversations all the time, but it's also really funny. Lots of good humor in the dialogue. And if you don't care for it, one of the things I love about this game is that it really respects the player's time, and you can actually skip a lot of that stuff. If you just want to get to the puzzles, you can skip over a lot of the dialogue and stuff. And if you get frustrated with the puzzle, you can actually skip levels. You can jump around really quickly. You can come back to levels later. Every level has special challenges, so you just getting through the levels usually not too hard. Sometimes you can brute force it. Sometimes you have to be clever, but every level also has these additional optional objectives, which really force you to be clever to find out, like, can you beat this room in 1 turn or 2 turns? Can you pull off some kind of special combo from the stock setting that's there? How do you manipulate it to pull off whatever these extra requirements are? But those are optional. You don't have to go after them. So I really like that the game is flexible in terms of how difficult it is and how much you want to engage with those more advanced mechanics. Or as you go, your characters get more powerful. They unlock more abilities that make some of them just flat out better, or also unlock ones that let you set up more complex combos. I really love that too. We'll look at some of those later. And so, yeah, this game is really easy to recommend because everything about it I love. All right, so here we'll go hands-on for a minute and kind of just demonstrate one of the early levels from the game. And so each level starts off with you're about to breach the room, and usually they have a little conversation here that's kind of usually lighthearted, but it fills in the history of the story, what's going on with these characters. And so it is really like a complex story that you're kind of figuring out as you go. It's kind of like a globe-trotting action movie, trying to figure out this conspiracy of what's going on with the bad guys. And then all of your characters have their like history and backstory and how it's all connected that you kind of learn as you go. But it's usually kind of lighthearted. There's a lot of jokes and banter. Has kind of an Ocean's 11 vibe to it. But if you want to, you can skip over all that and get right to breaching the room. And then once the level starts, like I said, these are all handcrafted levels where it's basically a big puzzle. But that doesn't mean there's only one right answer to the puzzle, because usually there's plenty of ways you can go about solving them. And it'll make you feel really smart when you figure out a really efficient way to get through the level. because you can kind of brute force these levels and not be very efficient. But what you want to do is find ways to clear them really quickly and efficiently. And then whenever you're playing, I'm replaying this level so it doesn't have it, but whenever you're playing a level for the first time, there's a primary objective, but then there's also these optional objectives that you can go after, and you don't have to do those. They're just for fun and just for kind of bragging rights, and then you get points from those that let you unlock more outfits for your characters, but they don't do anything. They're purely cosmetic. So that's just there to add a little extra challenge if you're looking for it. Now our characters each one has totally different abilities. Most have some kind of basic attack. Some characters don't have much of a basic attack either, but they have a lot of utility. This is early on, so we only have a couple abilities here, but eventually this whole sidebar is filled with different abilities. Some require mana, which, like right now, our characters start with just 1 mana each, and so you can get more through the level, but it's really limited, so you have to kind of use that sparingly with your most powerful abilities. But in this scenario, it's wanting us to set a trap for the enforcer, so we can see, and one important thing to know is that your wizard character here, Zan, he can see 1 second into the future. So that's kind of the in-game explanation for why you can foresee what's about to happen, what your opponent's about to do. Just like in Into the Breach, you can kind of see what's going to happen before it happens. You know what your enemies are going to do, but it's up to you to kind of work with that information and figure out how to manipulate the situation to your advantage. And then one thing I also love is that the game lets you rewind. So if you make a mistake, this is a game about solving the puzzle. It's not so much about getting it right the first time. Like, it wants you to experiment and try different solutions to things. So you can make as many moves as you want, and as long as you don't end the turn, you can rewind back to the beginning of the turn. So if you position a character in the wrong spot, or you try something, you realize, oh, that's not going to work, you can just hit rewind and just move them to a different spot. In this case, though, we want her to go here because we want this guy to go here. And Zan, one of his abilities is he can kind of do like an Overwatch thing and make the enemy run into him. So we can see that we knock that guy out. Now this is a really early scenario, so it's not real big, but more enemies will show up over time. And these doors, you need to get to them to seal them off to stop reinforcements, which sometimes is easier said than done. Sometimes there's a lot of doors. And so you have to get over to there. These guys have like these shields. There's tons of different enemy types, and for a long time in the game, like every new scenario, you'll fight some kind of new type of enemy, and they'll have like a new challenge, a new mechanic that you got to kind of figure out how you're going to deal with them. So we took that guy out again, easy enough. But there's another one coming, but we can run over there, seal off that door, and now we've completed this level. Like I said, that's a really early level, so it's really simple. But there's a lot of great, just the mechanics of the game, the way it works together. And then whenever you go to the next mission, boom. So each little mission is just like a little chunk, a little slice of the story. Now these are really small rooms, but they get much bigger later. Now this has a different kind of enemy, this sharpshooter, who as soon as you enter the room, if you hit one of these yellow spaces, he'll fire immediately, even on your turn. So you have to think, okay, how do I deal with that? Because if I run into the room, he's going to get shot. And your characters have health, they can take hits, but really, if you're like me, you're going to want to get through every level without your characters getting damaged at all, or if you can help it. But there are mechanics later where maybe you don't care if one of them gets killed, maybe you can just bring them back to life. So the game is really flexible in what you do. And then, like I said, there's not really one right solution to most of these levels. There's different ways you can go about it. Sometimes I'll even do the level, get all the optional objectives, and still feel like I could have done that more efficiently. Like I could go back and do it again and do it better. And so it's one of those games that makes you feel clever when you come up with a good solution to a problem. Now, between missions, you'll be able to come to this little hub, your base, and you'll be able to do several things. You unlock perks as you go, as your characters gain experience, go up levels, and these perks let you improve your different abilities. But it's really hard to choose because they're all really good, and a lot of them actually open up new strategies. Some are just like +1 damage, but that can matter. It can make an attack that's kind of like a basic attack that's not really that great. That +1 damage is enough to make it, oh, well, maybe it's viable to use that to fight the enemy. But a lot of times on most of these, you're looking for things that give them more utility. So like Zan, his ability here, False Prophet, it lets him make like like a hologram of himself, but it's magic. It's not a hologram, it's magic that runs out, and enemies will target it instead of him. And the perk I took for it is if the prophet dies before it disappears, which it disappears at the end of your turn, you get the mana back. So it costs mana to use that, but as long as an enemy shoots it and kills it, which is how I primarily used it, you get the mana back, so you can keep doing it over and over. So that's really helpful. But other ways you could use it is that it can, before it goes away, it'll use his regular attack on an enemy. So you can send it out and it'll do some damage. And you can have both of those things eventually. Or useful fiction, this one makes it interact with items. So there's certain things you need to interact with, like computers and stuff. So you can use your little hologram of yourself to go like activate the thing. So that makes that ability go from being kind of useful to being extremely useful, giving it a lot of utility. You can use it offensively, you can use it to go interact with objects, or you can take that so you can just use it multiple times. And that's just one ability for one character. And each character has totally different abilities that they use. This one, she's the necromedic. She can create death's door, so you can create like these doorways that you're like a portal that your other characters can push enemies into to get them off the map immediately. She can use this transference, and that makes it where any character that takes damage, that damage is sent to another character on the map. So you can have it where enemies are hurting each other instead of hurting you. You can redirect damage to like an exploding barrel so it explodes, things like that. And yeah, each character is just totally different and has a whole different set of abilities. And then as you upgrade them, really unlocks new strategies just by upgrading those. The map here, we've got the red string tying stuff together because it's kind of a detective story. It's kind of a conspiracy you're unraveling. So you can kind of come here to catch up on the story and get details on stuff like what was going on, learn about the characters. The missions, so I'm only like maybe a little more than a third through the game, but you can come back here and replay any of the missions that, say, the ones with the little gold star, the ones where I got all the optional objectives, but you can go back if you want to try to get the optional objectives on each one. And it's easier when you go back because you have higher level characters, basically. There's also, under the streams, you get challenge missions and these like replayable survival challenges where, these are just kind of harder missions if you want some more to play with. There's some additional dialogue here if you want, but I like that the game's basically like, if you don't care, you don't have to, but you can get this extra dialogue to learn more about the characters, and then you have different outfits you can unlock. And then some of those are pretty cool, like you turn into like a cowboy medic or a Grim Reaper doctor. So cool. That's kind of the art style of the game is really good, very colorful, kind of simple looking, but also unique. So I really like that. And then if you're ready to jump back into a mission, you just click and away we go. We're back in one of the scenarios, and really quick. And when you replay, you can replay with different characters than the initial. So you can kind of like try the same level again, but with a different set of characters. So very flexible game, lets you kind of play it the way you want to. All right, so I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to say about the game. It came out a few months back. It was only $20 base price, but it was on sale. It was even cheaper on the holiday sale, so I couldn't resist. I picked it up, and I'm really glad I did. It is a really fun tactical puzzle game where you can just play a chunk at a time if you want. It's easy to hop in and out. It loads basically instantly. It's great for handheld. If you have like a Steam Deck, it's perfect for that. It has a really unique setting that's really colorful. It's fun, but also it got a really deep story. Like there's a lot of going on if you kind of pay attention to the characters and the story, but it's just fun to play. And like I said, it respects your time because you can skip the dialogue if you want. You can even skip whole levels if you get frustrated on one, you can't figure it out. You can just skip it, come back to it later, and then it has all those optional objectives. So it really is, even after you've played through it, you'll probably won't get all those optional objectives the first time, so you can go back in and try to get those. You can go back with more powerful characters, make it a little easier, or try different strategies you hadn't thought of when you first got to that level. But as you play, you'll kind of find things that work for you, and you'll find new things. It's one of those games that it makes you feel smart when you come across a new combo and you realize, oh, I could do this and then that and then that and that, and link all these things together. And where the first time you played a level, it might have taken you 4 or 5 turns to get through it, and you had to brute force it a little, and then you come back and you realize, oh, I can beat this level in 2 or 3 turns because I know I can do this in like a sequence that just ties everything together perfectly. And when you do that, it just feels great. And like I said, it's not really a game. Some of the levels might, but most of them don't really feel like there's just one right solution to it. Most of them feel like you can find something that works for you, that gets you through the level, and you could come back and do it differently and get the same outcome, but in a different way. So I love that. One thing I don't like about puzzle games is where it feels like there's only one right way to play a level. Here, it depends on which perks you take. So which ways you upgrade your character is going to make things different. So it's inherently flexible in that way. So in summary, I've gone on long enough. You get my feelings on this game. Definitely 2 thumbs up. Easy to recommend if you like this kind of gameplay at all. If you played Into the Breach, if you played XCOM Chimera Squad, and you like that kind of thing, this is perfect. And if you haven't, this is a great game to try if you're wanting to play something with kind of a tactical puzzle situation. So Tactical Breach Wizards, easy to recommend. Great game to pick up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.